With the early signing period quickly approaching and the coaching carousel in full swing, there have been talks about moving the early signing period from December to before the college football season and before players' senior years. I decided to put up a poll yesterday where 63% of you thought it should move up. Many media members and older people will talk about how it just makes sense and needs to be done. But might I remind you, these kids are 17, 18-year-old kids who are not just making 4-year decisions, but lifelong decisions. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this idea, as the poll showed, but I think moving the early signing period up could hurt not just the game of college football, but the players as well. With the craziness of this year's college coaching carousel resulting in multiple players decommitting and athletic directors seemingly, keyword seemingly, rushing to find a head coach before December 15th to make sure they don't ruin their recruiting classes, I have seen people talk about the possibility of moving up the early signing period to before the start of players' senior seasons. Before we get into why I disagree with that idea, let's look back at the history of the signing day. Until 1981, many college football conferences, including the ACC and SEC, held their conference signing days on the second Saturday in December so recruits could sign their letters of intent. During the 1980 coaching convention, several coaches proposed a resolution that eliminated conference signing days. During the 1981 cycle, players had to sign both conference letters of intent and national letters of intent. The conference letter of intent restricted players from signing with another school in that conference, while the national letter of intent kept players from signing with other schools in general. The NCAA abolished the early signing day in January of 1981 and made National Signing Day the third Wednesday in February, which has since been moved to the first Wednesday in February typically. Players can verbally commit to a school, but nothing is binding until they sign their national letter of intent. Back in 2014, conversations started to begin around the idea of implementing an early signing period. High school basketball already had one in place during mid-November, so many turned to football wondering why there wasn't one already. At the time, Georgia head coach Mark Richt was against the idea, telling the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, "I'd be afraid to change it. I don't want to turn the regular season into such a recruiting frenzy that you can't even coach your team on a weekly basis. I enjoy coaching too." Stanford head coach David Shaw spoke on it, telling ESPN, "People can make whatever argument they want. It boils down to that coaches don't want to keep recruiting an entire class all year long." Shaw went on to speak about how coaches swooping in and telling kids they probably won't get into Stanford, with him telling ESPN, "They say you don't know if you're getting into Stanford, so you just gotta sign with us." I don't think these kids should be pressured into decisions, and that's what it's all about. There were people talking about the idea of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Tyler Donahue from the Bleacher Report wrote back in 2014, senior high school students are swept up in nationwide recruitment craziness during the final months leading up to February, whether they've been committed to a university or not. By signing in November, they would be rewarded for work on the field and in the classroom with early security for the future. If a program is willing to fully invest in a teenager for 4 to 5 years by extending a scholarship to a high school sophomore, there shouldn't be an alarming concern if that pact becomes official 2.5 months ahead of schedule. The athlete can finish a senior season without worrying about the last-ditch sale pitches, recruiting misdirections, or fielding 50 phone calls a day. The college football world saw its first early national signing period in 2017. Going into the first period, it was believed that 60 to 80% of all college prospects were going to sign by December 22nd that year. Barton Simmons wrote back in 2017, "There are exceptions. Some prospects are just good enough that they will not need to secure a spot in a particular team's class and will have one waiting for them regardless of when they decide to lock down their recruitment. They will wait until February, possibly taking an additional official visits along the way. Other prospects may be experiencing coaching turnover at their chosen school that gives them an excuse to delay signing. Most prospects that are committed to a program, especially big ones, will risk getting dropped by that program if they abstain from signing at this early period. The goal of the early signing period was to prevent prospects from being dropped just days before the February signing day due to either new coaching staffs or simply being overlooked by a program who chose to go in a different direction after recruiting the players. Throughout the past few weeks, I have come across a handful of people pitching the idea of pushing the early signing period to before the college football season. I get where they are coming from. Other sports offer something like that, and it could solve the idea that everyone is talking about, that coaching searches are being rushed due to the early signing period. It also allows schools and players to lock down spots in the recruiting process. Everything looks great from the surface. The problem is when you dig deeper and really think about the idea. I think sometimes we forget these kids are 17, 18-year-old kids, and that these kids are choosing not just where they want to play football, but where they want to go to college. Only 1.6% of all college football players make it to the NFL, and wherever you choose to go to college is not just a 4-year decision, it is a lifetime decision. Personally, I am a 22-year-old who just graduated from Wisconsin, an alumni base I will be a part of the rest of my life. I went through the recruitment process, granted as a long snapper, but I saw how things were done firsthand. College decision day for most high school students is May 1st. Granted, I know people going on to play Division I sports are not regular high school seniors, but why push kids to sign 6 months before the National Signing Day and 9 months before College Decision Day if the period would take place in August? You need to make an informed decision that does not involve coaches applying pressure to commit as soon as possible. The argument to this point would be they shouldn't sign if they aren't ready. In a perfect world, that would happen, but coaches will probably hold the scholarship offers over these kids' heads. If they don't sign early, the schools will offer his spot to someone else, and that's not right, but it's the business of the game. The whole reason for the early signing period was to protect the players, but it might hurt them in this situation if it were to be moved up. Along with that, what if a player who signed early has an insane senior year and they launch up recruiting boards? Let's just say a player signed with Akron because that was their only Division I offer at the time, but they may have people from Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State reaching out. Akron may not let them out of their letter of intent, and now the kid is in the transfer portal in May before he's ever played it down at Akron. If you think recruiting is dirty now, how do you think it will be when a player signs their letter of intent in August? If you think schools are automatically going to stop recruiting a kid that early, you are crazy. Schools will find a way to get players into the transfer portal if schools don't release the players from their letters of intent. They will get in the ear to those closest to the recruit. And that brings me to the transfer portal. I fear things will only get out of hand. When players have breakout senior years, they will enter the transfer portal before they ever arrive on campus because they signed with the only school they had an offer from before the season. The numbers for the portal will increase to crazy numbers. Moving the early signing period up will help coaches and only a handful of players. Moving the signing period up a month and a half after their senior year was helping players, but moving it up 6+ months may have unintended consequences. The last thing I want to address is the fact that coaches lie during recruitment. They say they aren't going anywhere, but then leave for better opportunities, which we don't attack them for, but when it's a player, we do. I came across a Los Angeles Times article from 2015 talking about some of these things when coaches were leaving the day after signing day. I'm not just talking about head coaches, I'm talking about assistant coaches too, guys you spent months or years developing a relationship with. Moving the early signing period up is not the answer. Coaches are making millions of dollars a year, and because they chose to leave, they shouldn't be the ones complaining. I think what we saw during this time period is actually a good thing, because it's forcing coaches and schools to make long-term deals which the players will benefit from because we will see fewer pulling of the rug moments. I think the biggest problem I have with this is the fact that people making the decision are people who are 20 to 30 plus years out of high school and college and don't have the right understanding of how a young person thinks. If there is change, I think college athletes need to be involved, including maybe a whole NCAA football poll to all current athletes. If the players want to move it up, then let it move up, but make sure the players get a word in edgewise. Personally, I think National Signing Day should be February and May, not December and February. During the old system, players could still enroll early by signing financial aid agreements. But what do you think is the perfect recruiting calendar situation, and did I change your mind on the early signing period? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my other videos right here. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.